We are going to go over human growth and development. We're going to stick to that section, specifically on theories of human development throughout the lifespan, social, emotional, and cognitive and behavioral development. Hey guys, so we are going to review the information between pages 47 and 54 in the exam guide, and the rest of the information will be followed up in another video. We're going to go through all of those different categories. First off, we have a nice little bullet point for theory, which is a general explanation supported by evidence obtained through scientific method. And then we have social development. Humans are inherently social. Social development is linked to mental health, work success, ability to achieve life tasks. Erik Erikson, whose theories focused on how children socialize and how it affects their sense of self. In this section, we're gonna focus on the 8 stages, which involve trust versus mistrust from the ages of 0 to 1. And here we're looking at one's confidence and security within the environment. Then we have autonomy versus shame and doubt between the ages of 1 and 3. This is where we're looking at independence and ability to survive. Next, we have initiative versus guilt between the ages of 3 and 6. So we have assertion, leadership, and decision making. We move into industry versus inferiority between the ages of 6 up until puberty, where we look at pride and accomplishments and goal achievement. Then we have identity versus role confusion in the stages of adolescence. And here we're going to look at identity formation and exploration. Then we move into intimacy versus isolation, so young adulthood. Here we're looking at your ability to commit and relationships. So that's a pretty easy one for us to remember, right? Because we're in our young adulthood and looking at our relationship styles and how we're able to get along with people. Then we move into generativity and stagnation, which is in middle adulthood. The person is thinking of the bigger picture, thinking about giving back to society. They're working on their productivity and they're raising their families. They have children. So then we have ego integrity versus despair. So we have this in the older and senior citizen category, and this is where people are looking into retirement. They're reflecting on their lives and just trying to figure out whether or not they're satisfied with their achievements, and they're just contemplating. We have a little cue for social development. On the micro level, it's learning to behave and interact well with others. So do you play nice? And it relies on your emotional development, which is how you learn to manage your feelings. The macro level, social development has to do with processes needed to benefit people, especially the poor. How are groups of people working together to help each other? Yeah, so like social harmony, how are people getting along when you think about social development? And then it's also has to do with the way people interact in groups and society and the norms that facilitate those interactions. So what's going on in society that makes people interact in positive ways or negative ways, and just how people are interacting with each other. So right now we're in the midst of quarantine. How will that affect our social development? How is social distancing affecting our social interactions? Like, it's one thing to be able to get on your live or FaceTime somebody, and it's another thing to be able to go and give your best friend a hug who lives across town, or to interact with the cashier at the register, or your hairdresser. What if she was the girl that you could sit back and like kick it and chop it up with? Another macro level view of social development is a change in social institutions. Moving forward, we have emotional development, which we just briefly looked at when we were talking about social development. It's how you have your biopsychosocial, spiritual, because everything is kind of like playing into another. So you have emotional development, which is learning to manage feelings, reflected in ability to pay attention, make transitions, and cooperate with others. Play is the true work of childhood. During play, children learn they are fun to be around. Self-confidence is needed for loving and supportive relationships. We forward into cognitive development, aka brain development, innate qualities versus personal experiences. What's inside versus what's happened around us, or which one is more responsible for our brain developing and giving us the ability to think and understand. Gene activity interacts with events and environment. Here it's kind of like the merging of the two. From birth, there's scientific research that proves that our bio is interacting with our environmental, our genes are coming together with what happens around us. Our parents' drug abuse can have physical effects on their child. It's something that's going on outside but can have internal effects, physical effects. 6 levels of cognition: knowledge, comprehension, application, analysis, synthesis, evaluation. There are goals to learn, which may have 3 domains of development. Cognitive, which is mental skills. The other is affective, which is growth in feelings or emotional areas. And then psychomotor, so manual or physical skills. Piaget, Jean Piaget, Piaget, Piaget. Focuses on the acquisition of knowledge and how we gradually acquire it. Children learn through interaction with environment and others. Also, he developed a theory on moral development, further researched by someone else, so we'll go briefly into moral development in a second. But focusing on Piaget and his theory of cognitive development, there are 4 stages: sensory-motor from the ages of 0 to 2, pre-operational from the ages of 2 to 7, concrete operations from the ages of 7 to 11, and formal operations from 11 to maturity. Lawrence Kohlberg, he kept the movement going with moral development. He developed 6 stages which focused on responding to moral dilemmas. There's 3 levels, 6 stages. The higher the stages, you should be able to deal with complex dilemmas. Stealing candy versus robbing a bank. 3 stages are the pre-conventional, the conventional, and post-conventional. So pre-conventional, before age 9, conventional adolescence, and post-conventional adulthood. Go into learning theory, the behaviorist perspective, which is more of a Pavlov-Skinner area. Then we have cognitive with Piaget, which we just talked about, humanistic, social situational, Bandura. Now we have behavioral development, and the focus is on behavior over personality. It studies observable and measurable behaviors, completely rejects internal thoughts and feelings. It needs to be focused on behavior, what you can see is happening, how that can be measured. If every time my mom yells at me, I start to scratch my arm, there's a behavior and there's something that you can measure. Behavior determines feelings. So if your behavior has an effect on your feelings, that means you can change. If you change your behavior, you can change or get rid of certain feelings. I feel so anxious when I'm talking to this person. I stop talking to this person, I no longer feel anxious. That feeling is gone because I changed my behavior. So the goal of behavioral development is to modify behavior. So 2 different types of behavioral development: involuntary versus voluntary. Respondent, involuntary; operant, voluntary. When it comes to respondent, there's generally a stimulus, and then operant has to do with the consequence. So I'm gonna go further into that in the next video. This is just the very beginning of our study session.